Hello there, my name is Jason Boswell, and today we're going to be talking about OpenText core data discovery and risk insights. And the topic we're going to discuss is how do we take the analysis done across all our data and break that down into a user-centric data management with a little help from the Aviator. So the scenario is that we, as an end user, I understand the importance of removing obsolete and trivial data. I understand the importance of protecting sensitive data, but I'm no expert in some compliance. So how can we use this system to use the analysis tools to help me easily show how I can meet these corporate policies? So as the forces driving this change is that we've got vast amounts of data that need to be managed, and only a small percentage of the enterprise data is managed or classified. This is quite common in many organizations, whilst we have to meet these stricter regulations. So how do we do this? Like traditionally, this has been done by a centralized team trying to make sure we are compliant. Really, we've got to use these initiatives such as data privacy and these strategic initiatives, but drive that down to the users who are responsible for their own data. So how do we enable them? Okay, so let's get to it and let's have a look at the product. So yeah, we're going to be using core data discovery and risk insights today. And traditionally, the analysts would be looking at inside the connect and analyze portions of the product. And we'll quickly look at some of those today, but we'll be mainly concentrating is how does the users who would mainly operate in this manage section, and maybe even they come in through the email to know what they've got to do to take action on their data and to review that analysis. So let's quickly start with connect and show you where we are. So the discovery analysis, so this has analyzed many of our systems, whether it's SharePoint or file system or databases. But inside this system here, I've got my system, I've analyzed this particular file system here, and I've been looking for grammar sets. I'm looking for sensitive data based on the US customer privacy or the EU data, or whichever data is appropriate. But if I look at the heat map, we can see the level of the analysis here. And inside this file system, we've got multiple folders. And to replicate this, I've got some project folders from different departments, and there are some home drive folders. So obviously whoever's going to take action on this data need to be the responsible people in each of these areas. So home drive and individual, or for the departments that were inside these areas. So how do we do this? We don't want this to be a manual operation. We can see as these have been analyzed in the heat map, there is a relatively high level as there is some sensitive data inside these documents. So if I look at the engineering folder and we'll look at the items within inside that, we can see that we have some documents in here. So we've got an invoice in here and it actually contains some credit cards, and the system has been pre-configured to automatically mask out particularly high sensitive data such as the credit cards. So let's make sure we apply the necessary protection rules to protect this data from it in its locations. And it looks like we might have some obsolete data in there, and there looks like some old data in here. So let's use the analysis to break this up into take the most appropriate actions. I know we've only got a small amount of data here, but imagine you're doing this across hundreds and thousands of documents that may be inside this project folder. Okay, so we can see it's got high risk score. Let's look at how we can take some action on this data. So for now, switch to the manage view here. We can see that we've got the folder structure here, the hierarchy of this data, and you can see this is the area that I was working with before. And we've got some actions that have been kicked off. So we've got a sensitive data govern action that's been kicked off, and a cleanup action on the home drive. So on the home drive, there's a company policy to every quarter do a data cleanup of your home drives, and it's the sensitive data. We've got to review and protect sensitive data within inside that. And to instantiate any of these actions, it's very simple. You just click a node on the tree and then click the appropriate action. So This one was done this way. Enter a name, and we will use the security groups that are assigned them to define who is appropriate person inside the department to take the appropriate action. We look at the files. One of the bits of metadata that we capture to do this is we capture not only the metadata about the file size and the file type and the name, but we also capture the owner of the data, who last modified the data, and the security group. So these are the security groups that were on the file system, and we're going to use these security groups to drive the analysis process. So because I was part of those security groups as we kicked off this process, because I'm part of the engineering department, I got an email notification, and the email notification specified that I've been assigned a role on this workspace to review and protect sensitive data. So all I need to do is from my email now is to click on this, and it'll take me directly to that workspace. So as the workspace loads, the first thing it shows me is different analytical views of the data. First of all, I've got a timeline view. In the timeline view, I can see there's quite a number of old data in there, going all the way back before 2008. This is perhaps right for doing some cleanup. I can see the file types and mostly Word documents, but there's some unknown formats. Perhaps I've got some obsolete files in here. In the tiger, I can see what type of sensitive data. I've got some quite highly sensitive data in there. 91% of it's got some form. But if I check its protection status, only 0%, well, 0% of it have been checked as protected. So perhaps we need to apply some form of protective actions. And how much of it is sensitive data? If we look at it, adjust this to look based on a file count, 64% of the documents contain some form of sensitive data. What type of sensitive data? These have been pre-organized inside my workbooks. So inside my workbook, it's been organized into the groups of sensitive data that I can take the most appropriate action. So perhaps in the intellectual property, I might take the action to move those to a masking operation. There isn't anything with intellectual property. Things with government IDs, I might want to take some form of protective action or delete these as appropriate. If I was worried about although there is some stuff that's government data. So what is government data? It must be, we've got social security numbers and we've got date of birth, and we say, oh, well, does it look for other bits of government IDs like driving licenses? Maybe I can ask it. This is where the Aviator is useful for asking these types of questions. So, does CDDRI find driving licenses? So the Aviator is designed so you can have a conversational interface with the product and ask it questions about the analysis. Oh, so it does find some driving licenses inside the product. I can see here it has a capability to find these. Wonder what countries it does. What countries does CDDRI? Oh, so it can see that it finds from lots of countries. So I can see if my countries are appropriate for looking for driving license from this area. So you could have a conversational interface about how to look for data, how to analyze the data, and then what are my options for taking appropriate actions. So we go back to the initial view here, and here we've concentrated on not just how we analyze the data, but how do we break that down? How do we use the high-level analysis, including the security access groups, to automatically assign these to the right people, deliver the appropriate notifications into an email so I don't have to be logged into this tool. It tells me when I've got an action to take to review data, and I can use the Aviator to ask it questions about how that analysis is performed. Okay, thank you very much.